So today, guys, is the continuation of my discussions about the OINP, the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. So I want to discuss briefly, as I previously mentioned, the employer job offer foreign worker stream. So it's exactly the same as the pathway that I have right now. So I have a approved nomination certificate for the OINP, and I wanted to share all my experiences, discuss what is the employer job offer for foreign workers all about. So the OINP employer job offer foreign workers stream, the opportunity to apply to permanently live and work in Ontario. Your job offer must be in a skilled occupation at skill type 0 or A and B of the National Occupation Classification. This stream is open to foreign workers in and outside of Canada. So meaning even you are outside of Canada, you can still apply for this stream. It doesn't necessarily for you to be inland. As long as you would have a job offer from an Ontario employer, then you would be eligible for this stream. But before that, you must first register in the OINP Expression of Interest system and receive an invitation to apply before you can apply online to be nominated by the Ontario government for permanent residency. So this system now has changed. Before it was like first come first serve when they opened the stream, but now it is open for the whole year, and there is no limit of who can apply on this as long as you are eligible. So there are certain qualifications to become eligible for this stream, and yeah, I would want to discuss later on my next video about the scoring factor that they are considering. So based on that, they would give you a points, and it would be like a point system. It's not that high point system as the express entry, but they have their own way of putting a points on your qualifications. This stream, there are three important requirements, job offer requirements. The applicant requirements, the employer requirements. So you need to satisfy with all the qualifications listed on these requirements. Okay, so let's discuss now the job offer requirements. To qualify under the employer job offer foreign worker stream, you must have a job offer in Ontario from the employer that meets the qualification requirements. So number one, your job offer must be a full-time and permanent. So the job offer must be full-time and permanent position. Full-time means the job must be in a minimum of 1,560 hours a year and a minimum of 30 hours of paid work per week. So meaning if you receive a job offer, it's not just a temporary or a seasonal job. It must be a full-time and permanent. There should be no time frame, like let's say contractual or something like that, like you have to work for 2 years. No, you won't be eligible. It should be like a permanent job offer. And take note that your job offer will not be qualified if it affects the employment of a person involved in the labor dispute. So you have also to make sure that when the employer gives you a job, it should not be because of they wanted to replace someone who has a dispute from the labor. So that's also you need to be very careful with. Number two, the job offer must be on these eligible occupations. So the job offer must be a skilled occupation at skill type 0, A, and B. If your job offer is in skill type C or D, maybe you would be qualified of some other streams, but for this specific foreign worker streams, only 0, A, and B are the qualified eligible occupations or the eligible occupations. The national occupation classification of your job, I can post it down below the link so that you can click and then you can find your NOC classification. Next thing is the median wage level. The pay of the job offered must meet or be higher than the median wage level for that occupation in the specific region of Ontario where you will be working. So for you to find what's the median level of your specific job, you have to find that on the job bank website. I can also share down below the job bank website, so you can just click it and look for what's the median level on your job. So what you need to do is just enter the occupation title and the NOC or the National Occupation Classification Code of your job, and then you can search. So basically all the salaries or the payments, wages level, you can find it there, and then you would see how much is the wage offered to you compared with the median wage listed on the job bank. So if the wage of the employment region where the applicant will work or report to work is not available on the wage report, the Ontario wage should be used. So if you are already working in the position, this is another case, the wage of the job offer must be equal or greater than the wage level that the employer currently pays you in that position, in addition to meeting or exceeding the median wage level. So it's very clear that the wage level that you should have must be higher than the median level. If you are paid annual salary, your hourly wage can be calculated as follows. Number 1, deduct the bonuses or other discretionary benefits from the annual salary. Next is divide the remaining amount by the number of weeks of work per year. So generally, it should be divided by 52 weeks. So let's say you have a $60,000. I will give you an example. So let's say you have a $60,000 provided for you in your job offer and an annual salary. You have to divide that into 52 weeks. Then you would have, let's say, 1,154 roughly, and then divide it into 40 hours per week. Then you would end up with 28.846 per hour. So this is your per hour rate, and then you have to check it against the job bank website on what's the wage, median wage level on your specific NOC job code. 4 is the position is urgently necessary to the employer's business. The position offered must be urgently necessary to your employer's business. This means that the job offer must align with your employer's existing business activities in position, must be urgently needed to maintain or grow ongoing business activity. Next is the work based in Ontario. So definitely you need to have a job offer which is based in Ontario, because this is the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. So if your work base is other than Ontario, then you wouldn't be eligible for this. So that are the 5 important things that you have to make sure you are in compliance for the job offer requirements. So let's move on now for the applicant's requirements. So this is your requirements as the applicant. After you receive an invitation to apply, you may apply to the employer job offer foreign worker stream. You must meet all the requirements in the categories in order for your application to be approved. So again, just to be clear, you need to have an expression of interest before you could receive an invitation to apply, and then from that they would give you 14 days for you to submit your full documentations, the same as what you have shown on your expression of interest. So it doesn't go straight like once you submit, it's automatically you're applying for the OINP. No, it's not that. It's not the case. So the applicant requirements, number 1 is the expression of interest and invitation to apply. So you must receive an invitation to apply and applied within the deadline it's identified, which is the 14 days. You must demonstrate that you had the qualifications that you claimed in the expression of interest that you registered with the OINP. Number 2, the work experience or license or other authorization. So this is regarding your job, if the work experience is required or the license is required. So you must meet one of the following requirements depending on the position of your job offer. If your job offer is for the occupation that requires mandatory license or authorization in Ontario, then you need to have or to hold a valid license before you can apply for this stream or at the time of your application submissions. So these are the hard thing. If you have a occupation that requires a mandatory license, it would be like you have to work out first with your license before you can apply for this stream, and I don't advise you for that because it's a long process, long procedures. So it's better if your job occupations is not the licensed one. But for those people who have, of course, a mandatory license requirements and it's easy for them to gain or to have that license, then go for it. So this is the next one. If your job offer is not the occupation that requires mandatory license or other authorization in Ontario, then the experience or you have to demonstrate work experience with the same NOC code of your job offer. So take note, it should be the same NOC code of your job offer. So it's like needs to be 2 years of your work experience on the same job offer within the last 5 years. You must have gained this work experience within the 5 years prior to the date you submit your application, not the date you receive the invitation to apply. You must have been legally living and working in Canada if you are already in Canada. That work you've done must add up to 2 years. It does not have to be 2 years of continuous work. So as long as your job experience is within that span of 5 years, then the 2 years of that would be eligible for this stream. Next thing is the valid license or other authorization. I think this is the same as what we have discussed on item 2. So if your job offer is an occupation that requires a mandatory license or other authorization in Ontario, you must hold a valid license or authorization from the appropriate regulatory body in Ontario when you apply. Yeah, exactly the same as what we have discussed on the number 2. The only difference here is that if you have a license or a authorization to work in Ontario, you don't need to show your experience, just submit those documents. But if you don't have, then you have to show the experience of at least 2 years of the same NOC. Number 4 is intention to live in Ontario. You must intend to live in Ontario after you've been granted permanent residence. We determine this by examining the ties to Ontario, which include the following things. So if you are working or having work in Ontario, if you're getting job offers applying or interviewing for the job. So, even though you're applying for different kind of jobs, as long as it's within the Ontario, you can use this as ties in Ontario. Because on my own experience, now I'm working with the engineering company, even though before I'm submitting for some other jobs, because of when I landed here, I wanted to get the job of any kind of job, so I submitted my applications. So you can have a screenshot of that and then attach on your documents. So anything that show your interest of staying in Ontario, you can use that as part of this documents. So studying, volunteering, leasing or owning property, visiting or having professional networking affiliations in Ontario. The hardest thing in here is like if you're outside Canada and you almost don't know anything here in Ontario, what kind of ties you can use for you to show your intentions to stay in Ontario. So number one is, even you're outside of Canada, what I can suggest is apply for a job here in Ontario. So even though they're not replying on you or you haven't got any responses, at least you have a documents to say that you're interested to work in Ontario. That's any part of Ontario. So that's the number one documents that you can use be counted for you. So if you're in Canada, you need to have a legal status. You may apply if you are in implied status at the time of your OINP application submission. So implied means that you submitted your application to IRCC to renew or extend your temporary status documents. You can remain in Canada and continue to work or study under the same conditions. So meaning, if you are on the implied status, like you are just extending your visa and the results haven't returned back or you haven't received the results, and you receive a ITA from the OINP which need you to return back to them and submit the documents within 14 days, then you are still eligible because you have submitted the documents for extension. So maybe what you can do there is you can just attach the paper documents like the working permit extension. So have that PDF documents and then attach on your documents to show your legal status here in Canada. But if you're not in Canada, then don't worry about this item. So the third thing is the employer requirements. It's not that hard for the employer requirements. The only thing you need to make sure here is, first, they should be aware of what you are going to apply. You have also to tell them about what requirements do you need coming from them. So if their business is operating in Ontario for a long time, then they would know about all of this stuff because many of their staff are applying on this pathway, especially if they are a temporary worker here or an open work permit holder here, the same as I do. I am an open work permit holder here and my wife is a student. So, number one, the general requirements. To qualify under the employer job offer, foreign worker stream, the employer must have been active business, must have been in active business for at least 3 years prior to the submitting of your documents. So just have a quick research on your company. If it's new, then you wouldn't be eligible. But if they have started their company for the past, let's say, 5 years, then you would go and you're eligible. They should have the business premises in Ontario where you will work, have no outstanding orders made against them under the Ontario Employment Standards Act, and demonstrate that enough effort was made to recruit a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident prior to offering the position to you. So this documentation says you can have a screenshot of, like, if you have seen their post on Indeed or Job Bank, right? The same time of you're applying to them, make sure you have a screenshot of it, because later on, once the Ontario asks for like some documentations of to show them the proof that they have tried their efforts to hire a Canadian or PR, then you can show them that yeah, they have posted this on the Indeed for like 15 days and then you were hired on that process. So the employers must demonstrate that reasonable efforts are made to recruit a Canadian citizen or permanent resident prior to offering the position to you, unless this is the thing, unless the applicant already has a valid work permit to work in Ontario or the employer has a positive LAMIA for the position. So if they have a LAMIA for the position, then they don't need to show those documentations that they were asking for. Or if the person is already working in Ontario with a valid work permit, the same as I do have a open work permit, then I don't, or my employer doesn't need to show them this effort of hiring the PR or the Canadian citizen. Next thing is the revenue requirements. So for the revenue requirements, a minimum annual gross revenue requirements different from the GTA and outside the GTA. So if your company that you're going to work with is inside the GTA, your company needs to have a minimum of 1,000 in total gross annual revenue. But if it's outside the GTA, they need to have a minimum of 500,000 in total gross revenue. So it looks like, yeah, much lower revenue if it's outside the GTA. Number 3 is the full-time employee requirements. Full-time employee requirements. For employers, business must have at the time of application submission one of the following. So if it's in the GTA again, your company needs to have at least 5 employees on the locations where you're going to work. That 5 employees is, at least 5 full-time employees who are Canadian citizen or permanent residents who work at the location where you will work. So if you are in GTA, check your colleague if they are on permanent residence or they are a citizen and count them. If they are 5, then your company is eligible for this. That's inside the GTA. But if you're outside the GTA, just count them and ask them if you have a colleague which is a permanent resident or a citizen and 3 of them is a PR or citizen, then your company is eligible for these requirements. Number 4 is the employer form. This is the only documents that you need from your employer. So they need to be aware that you're gonna ask them to provide this employer form. So as a suggestion, the same as what I did when I received the ITA, so at the same time I forwarded those emails to my employer for them to, think that you don't need those informations, but the OINP need those informations. So, and for them to really trust that these documents will go to the OINP and not just only for you. So the employer must make an application for approval of an employment position by filling out and signing an employer form. Your employer then must give you the employer form so you can scan it and upload with your applications. So in most cases, the employer doesn't give the employer form. So what you have to do with that? And that's exactly the same as what happened to me. When I asked my employer to give me this employer form, they were saying, I cannot share this information to you because it contains some of the confidential informations. And what I did is I asked the OINP, I send them an email and ask them that, is it possible for my employer to send them directly the employer form, because it contains a confidential information and they wanted to send it directly to them. So luckily the OINP has responded in my email, and they had just said that yes, you can ask your employer to send directly the employer form to us, noting on the subject your code or your reference code. So I forwarded those emails to my employer and asked them the same way to please forward these documents, the employer documents, to the OINP, and that's exactly what they did. But on the forms online, which you need to fill in the same of the informations on the employer form, maybe you can ask your HR if they can share the informations to you. Those that are not so confidential, maybe they can share it to you so you can answer it on your form. But for those they cannot easily share, then maybe you could, put any information and then just include a letter of intent on your applications for the employer form itself, and mention that this information, you can get it from the employer form itself, sent to you directly by my employer, and then attach their email. And guys, ask for the copy of emails coming from your employer that they have sent it to the OINP, just to make sure that they really do, and they have already sent before you finally send your applications. So that are the 3 very important requirements for the OINP. So another thing that I want to share is when it comes to payments, there are difference between if you're applying for your job offer outside the GTA and inside the GTA. So inside the GTA, you need to pay 2,000 Canadian dollars. But if your job offer is outside GTA, you have to pay 1,500 Canadian dollars. So it's pretty much expensive in GTA. So I applied in GTA, so I have paid $2,000 for that. It's only payment for the OINP for your certifications. So let's say you get the nominations, you get the certificate, then you have to pay again for your permanent residency. That's different, and that's different application. You have to submit again another documents. On my case, I have received my nomination, so it comes along with the work permit extension support letter. And take note, guys, that if you are on the open work permit, then if you are in the open work permit, then your work permit will change into closed work permit. Why? It's because you submitted your documents attaching the OINP nominations and the support letter to extend your work permit. So they would make it like a closed work permit now. But the good thing here is if your wife is working here, she can have a open work permit. And then the same thing with your dependents, they can have the same status in here with you. What else is the things that I have? Okay, the nominations actually comes, the nomination, like the approval of nomination is basically around 60 days as per their system, but for me it goes beyond that. It's almost 6 months actually, because I applied on February 2022, then March, April, May, June, I received the approval in July. So almost 6 months for me. But it's case-to-case basis. Some of the people I know, they have received it like 60 days. It depends. And another thing that you have to know, guys, if you applied on what they call paper base, this is the paper base. It is not valid for express entry, because on the express entry they have a different way. If you have an express entry profile and they are interested in you, they will send to you the expression of interest. What they call, they will send you an expression of interest. Yeah, they will send you a invitation, and then from there you would apply via express entry. But for this pathway, it will not be eligible for that. So once you receive a nomination, you have to apply it on a paper base, but it's not literal paper base, because you can apply online. It's just the way how they separate the express entry, and for the other one they call paper base. So I applied online. Okay guys, I hope I have given you some sort of information. If you have any questions about all the process on the OINP, I would happy to answer you. Just comment down below your questions and I would respond as soon as I can. Thank you for watching.